So today I'm going to review the Avengers, and what is interesting is that if I'd reviewed this 3 years ago, and I said I think this film is an outstanding masterpiece, everybody would have been like, well, that's just another The Avengers review. But since then some people have toned down their opinions a little bit, some have even called it overrated, so I think that now it's a lot more interesting to say what everybody said 3 years ago. What's old is new again. Yeah, I know, it's a hack move, but it reminds me of Forrest Gump. Everybody loved it, won many Oscars, but then it got kind of a backlash, especially because it defeated Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption. But just as with Forrest Gump, I thought it was fantastic, deserved its Oscars, and was better than Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption. I also think that this film deserves all of its praise and is in no way overrated, like Forrest Gump. Let's begin. I think The Avengers was truly fantastic. I think Filmmaster Adam in his original review did a great job explaining why, but since then he's toned down his opinion a little bit. I think Captain Logan said a lot of great things about it, but even he gave it only 3 out of 4 stars, which is something that actually surprised me. And of course Jeremy Hans did a great job explaining it, and to a certain degree Doug Walker, but even he and Rob Walker eventually treated it as somewhat overrated, so I think it's my job to now just go ahead and defend this film as an outstanding masterpiece. A lot of people have tried to downplay it as incredibly a lot of fun, but still just incredibly a lot of fun, but I agreed with the original assessment that it's like a Michael Bay movie, except that it has a brain, a heart, and a working sense of humor, and I would like to add to that, it also just has a soul. I think it's incredibly smart. I mean, nobody says that Terminator 2 was just an incredibly exciting action film. It was also a very thought-provoking action film, and so is this. A lot of people have tried to say that the story at its core is simple, but at its core Terminator 2 was kind of the first Terminator again, with Terminator traveling back through time and them having to escape from it. At its core, it was a simple action film, but just as Terminator 2 went far beyond that, so does The Avengers. I think that a lot of people really didn't get this film when they say that it's just a typical take over the world plot. I mean, I don't think this is just a typical take over the world plot at all. First of all, a lot of people complained how reliant it is on the other films, although ironically Filmmaster Adam thought it did a great job bringing people up to speed, and then he would complain that Age of Ultron didn't do so, but I myself think this film did a great job explaining the plot in and of itself and not being overly reliant on other films. Yes, it's a film within a series, but so was Return of the King. I mean, you also not understand some things if you watch The Godfather Part 2 without having seen the first one. This is a film within a series, but I think that for the most part it stood on its own very well, with Loki's motivations also being self-contained and the cube being largely explained, but I also don't see how people complained that it was a Tesseract storyline, because yeah, it has kind of an alien MacGuffin to it, and it has a lot of science fiction elements, but at its core, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope had a very gimmicky MacGuffin, because if you think about it, it's about the Empire trying to retrieve the Death Star plans, which they want to use to find a weak spot, and they managed to use this weak spot to destroy the Death Star just before it blows up their secret base. I mean, the whole story is kind of building up to this, the Empire is trying to destroy the Rebel Alliance because they're evil and they want to control the world and the rebels want to stop them and they fight back kind of thing. But nobody complains that Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope had a dumb or simplistic story or is overrated. I mean, at its core, a lot of these action films were simple, but what matters is what they did with it. And I also think that they managed to do a lot with The Avengers. First of all, what I think was very interesting about this film was that Loki didn't merely want to take over the world, he also wanted to show why he had the right to rule it. He wanted to humiliate Thor in the process and personally hurt his brother, while also at the same time proving his superiority to the humans and also proving his worth to his alien allies. A lot of people have complained that we didn't really find out that much about Thanos in this film and about his mysterious benefactor, but I like how they kept some elements mysterious and built it up for later films. Star Wars also just had a start off in a mysterious universe and had all kinds of things happening behind the scenes. I always liked that kind of thing. That's also why I didn't have a problem with it in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's kind of part of a serialized narrative, and that's what helps keep the world alien and real, the fact that we don't understand everything, and also I didn't mind not learning that much about the Chitauri. It helped keep them mysterious, and people complained, that the Chitauri were easily taken out by the nuke, but hey, they could be like a hive mind with the Borg. That can also be a problem. That's also what happens in real life a lot of the times with drones. So I really don't see how that's a problem. A lot of their technology clearly made sense. It was very well thought out. They were partially organic, they were partially robotic, they had all kinds of alien creatures, they worked together in formations, they were very violent and hostile, but at the same time worked in an organized fashion, and they were loyal to Loki, but they also had mysterious plans. They were waiting for their invasion somewhere in the cosmos. I think that they kept it nicely mysterious while also having it make internal sense. And what I also think is interesting is the whole dilemma where Nick Fury tries to post the council in destroying New York, how he wants to protect every innocent individual, how he truly wants to help, and they only care about the greater good. And we see that in the end the Avengers succeed in protecting the innocent, but that it does require real sacrifices. That's in the end they try to avoid collateral damage in a way that Loki doesn't. That kind of realism where it isn't just mindless action with destruction, but where the heroes truly are invested in protecting each individual, I think that helps, like with the new James Bond movies, to make this feel like a very realistic and grounded kind of action film where every life matters. It also makes the stakes more realistic, and some people have complained that we don't really see any civilians dying, kind of like they complained about with Star Wars Episode 1, but that does show that the Avengers do a great job at trying to protect the civilians. And also we see in the end that a lot of them get incredibly injured, they have moments of depression. This movie got truly dark. Coulson dies, and obviously got brought back later on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But Hawkeye kills people while he's under Loki's control. The story could be very gritty, it could be very daring, and at the same time you really see how the Avengers try to stand for the innocent. You see the moral dilemmas in having to stop this invasion. It for a while seems almost impossible, even with their superpowers. They do a lot of creative things with it, and also there's something very unexpected with the Hulk, with him using his powers to help the team. And some people complained that he just did that because the plot demanded him to, but it showed that he had finally accepted his angry emotions and was capable of letting them out, that he had followed Tony Stark's advice. All kinds of things like this, I think, make this more than just a mindless action film, and I think that this also gives it a lot of dramatic elements and help really elevate it above the average kind of superhero film, because unlike in films like Spider-Man, the conclusion doesn't come about that easy. Loki doesn't just kill himself. The solution requires a lot of sacrifices because Iron Man almost dies. What's interesting is that a lot of people liked how this was followed up upon in Iron Man 3, and Confused Matthew complained that his reaction here was incredibly superficial. But the defense that he was just trying to shield himself from having to show how much the experience affected him also makes sense within the context of this film, because you see when he goes into outer space just how much he hopes to still be able to speak Pepper. You see that the connection falls away, and you see how he almost cries, how he's shocked by what he sees, and how this was an incredibly special moment for him. So I think that a lot of the things which people thought were more thought-provoking about the films that followed up on the Avengers actually were already subtly set up here, just as Nick Fury's compartmentalization in Captain America the Winter Soldier. We see that here he also keeps secrets, and we see he also manipulates them. He even lies about, the location of the baseball cards. And what's interesting is that CinemaSins complained that they still need a Little League pep talk, but the thing is, they are facing such a great threat that even the whole team of them still feels incredibly threatened having to stop Loki. And I also disagree with Confused Matthew that he thought Loki wasn't a smart villain, because I certainly think it makes sense that he let himself be captured, because he wanted to get the scepter on board, and he couldn't just drop it, obviously, and he wanted to see its effects. We see it affects the Avengers, and we see it is what allowed them to locate the helicarrier and to deal a crushing blow to S.H.I.E.L.D., and it is also what already influenced Bruce Banner, making it easier for him to Hulk out. And this film also very strongly relies upon the continuity with the other films, as Captain Logan mentions, but it doesn't really require you having seen it, because it already shows within this film how the Hulk's powers work, and Thor's relationship with Loki and his father, and Captain America's backstory, and all of them indeed have very tragic and difficult backstories and conflicts and motivations and personalities that carry over from the other films, and they're all in character here. And they all play off each other well, and also don't see why Doc Walker remarked that it's just about them not getting along. It's not just about that. It's about that Nick Fury hopes that they can become something bigger, that because they are superhuman, they can basically unite to take humanity to the next level. That's really what this is about, because that's why Coulson admires them so much. He really thinks they are heroes. But we see that being a hero doesn't just require great power, or even just responsibility. It also requires patience, it requires humility, it requires trust, it requires being able to endure in the face of sacrifice, it requires being able to deal with loss, it requires forgiveness. All these things really gave this film an emotional center. We really see, and that's why I agree with Joss Whedon that this could serve as a war film, where we really see how they have to deal with loss and how they have to deal with their friends being compromised, like happens with Hawkeye, that they have to deal with their own past that they are conflicted about, like Black Widow. We really see how Loki can also emotionally manipulate them, how he's incredibly spiteful, how he's very sure that he'll win, and we see how it requires a lot of smart thinking and manipulating, for example on Tony's part, but also teamwork in order to defeat Loki. And it wasn't just about teamwork, that isn't just the core of this film, it's also about learning as a team to take what makes you special and to unite to reach a greater goal, and to be able to overcome the things that hold them back, and to be able to learn from each other. It's not just teamwork, it's also really about learning to deal with disabilities and feeling different from the world, being unique, like Tony with his arc reactor, and how the Hulk feels as though he's just a threat to people. It's learning to use what makes you special to help the world. It's learning to do that in the darkest of times. It's learning to use what went wrong in your past and to now deal with it in the future. And it's also going the extra mile and making sacrifices to protect the innocent, not taking the easy route as Loki does, not just bombing New York, all of that. And we see just how much of a toll that takes on them.